that is currently at the end of the agenda. If you would like to reserve your comments to be done at that time, you're welcome to. If you do not want to stay to the end of the meeting and want to do public comment now, that is welcome. But I know we have a written comment that was submitted, and we'll do that, not now, but because it's related to the same issue, after Bill, or after, we'll do it right before Bill does his. Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Okay, so is there any public comment beyond the written comment that we have right now that would like to go now? All right, hearing, yes, sir. Have you filled out a pink slip?
I have not.
Okay, well, I would ask that you go ahead and do that after you've made your comment. That's fine. Typically we do it before, but for the sake of timing, go ahead.
Okay, I'll make it very quick. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Ken Lyons, here on behalf of AT&T for the agenda item number K, letter K.
Okay.
Related to new singular wireless, and I just wanted to let you know that I was here to answer any questions if need be.
Ken, thank you.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate that. All right, seeing no public comment beyond Ken's, let's go ahead and proceed with council committee business. And the first order of business is topic A, which is approval of minutes. Do I have a motion?
I will move that we pass the minutes as they have been submitted.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, very good. Having a motion and a second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, motion carries unanimously, thank you. Okay, now we're on to topic B, which is the authorization to submit the 2019 NPDES permit annual report. Leah, Myrie, there you are, ready to go. Good to see you. Okay.
Hello, good evening, Committee Chair Kopang, Council President Honda, and council members, as well as engaged members of the public. My name is Leah Myrie. I am the Water Quality Coordinator of the Surface Water Management Division for the City of Federal Way. And I will be speaking with you tonight about the NPDES Permit Program Annual Update. The policy question before you is, should City Council approve and authorize submittal of the 2020 Annual Report and Stormwater Management Program Plan documents to the Department of Ecology as required by the NPDES Western Washington Phase 2 Municipal Stormwater Permit? If you're wondering, what is the NPDES permit? It is the National Pollutant Discharge and Elimination System permit, which basically came down from EPA and allows states to basically discharge their stormwater runoff. So without it, we would not be allowed to do so, which would cause problems as we would have mass flooding in the city, and we need to discharge our stormwater to surface waters. So with the permit and doing all of the activities under the state permit, we are allowed to discharge. NPDES permit types, so it's based on location. We are in Western Washington, so we have a Western Washington permit. We are a Phase 2 city. This is based on population being under 100,000. And the only Phase 1 city in King County is actually Seattle. We are a municipal stormwater discharge permit. And so altogether, we are the NPDES Western Washington Phase 2 Municipal Stormwater Permit. So new permit cycle changes. So in 2019, we were issued by Ecology a new permit for a 5-year cycle. New requirements under that permit include increased stormwater planning, operations and maintenance, source control to try to prevent pollution at the source, as well as some mapping and documentation. So we do have 9 permit requirements. So we do a lot in the Surface Water Management Division in Public Works. And I will briefly touch upon each of those through this. And so the stormwater management plan that we put together each year does detail each of these activities, what we've done in the past year and what we plan to do in the upcoming year. So for stormwater planning, this is kind of up and coming in the new permit cycle. So we're really still in the planning stages as far as looking at all of our watershed basins here in Federal Way, trying to not only characterize the health of each of them, and then also what maybe primary pollutants they may be facing, and then kind of prioritizing them for a stormwater action plan in the future. Public education and outreach, one of the primary keystone parts of our program because behavior change is paramount for stormwater and for water quality. We do the annual program, Storming the Sound, with Federal Way Public Schools, and each spring we do have almost 1,000 students release salmon into the High Lobos watershed, which is fantastic. We also have a lot of community events that we try to get out the message of what is stormwater and how people, residences, businesses can best prevent stormwater pollution. As far as public involvement and participation, one of the primary things that we accomplished in 2019 was the resurgence of our Stream Team program. So we now have several volunteers that go out to many of our stream sites on a regular basis to help us gauge the health of our watersheds. MS4 mapping and documentation. So MS4 is our municipal storm and sewer system. That is the city's public stormwater infrastructure. So basically we use GIS, but we are continually trying to update this and keep it as accurate as possible. As far as illicit discharge detection and elimination, this is all of those nasty spills and things that we do not want in our stormwater system. So we responded to and eliminated over 100 illicit discharges and connections last year. That is a lot of time. It's really exciting because we are getting notified of those by the public as well as internal staff and being able to get those taken care of before they get to receiving waters and the Puget Sound. Controlling runoff from new development, redevelopment, and construction sites. So this is basically from plan review through post-construction inspection. We are just trying to make sure that all of our fantastic new development in the city is not causing any environmental concerns. Operations and maintenance. So we have a very huge stormwater system with all of the pipes, all of the storm drains, about 13,000 storm drains to maintain within the city just publicly. Our fantastic crew does inspect over half of those each year. Last year it was about 62%, of which they cleaned about 25% of those needing maintenance. And they annually inspect several hundred stormwater treatment and flow control facilities. That might be stormwater detention ponds, vaults, other things that are basically trying to keep our water quality as clean as possible. Source control program. So this was new in this new permit cycle. Basically, it's creating a variety of businesses that are potentially high pollutant generating businesses, such as food sites, automotive sites, and making sure that if they do have problems that might result in an illicit discharge, that we go ahead and take care of those, and that we also give them education so that we can prevent it at the source. And then monitoring. We do pay into the regional fund that many jurisdictions in the area do to do effectiveness studies, source identification, and receiving water analyses on the watershed health of the Puget Sound region. So the summary of the program. So the NPDES program is authorized by the EPA, and then permitting authority is given through the Department of Ecology in Washington. And then basically our permit requirements, we have met everything throughout the past year. The final requirement is just submitting our annual report that documents all the wonderful things we do each year. That is due to ecology by March 31st. So the options before you are to approve the 2020 annual report and swamp plan. That's our fun name for it, the swamp plan documents, and authorize the Public Works Director to submit these documents to the Department of Ecology by March 31st, or do not approve the 2020 annual report and swamp plan and provide direction to staff. The mayor recommends forwarding option 1 to the March 17th City Council meeting, and if there are any questions, I am available.
Leah, thanks for your presentation. A lot of work obviously went into that by you and the staff, or the rest of the staff, so appreciate it. Or maybe it was all you. Was it all you?
It's a group effort always.
Okay, all right, good. Committee, any questions?
Do you have questions? Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your report. I have two questions.
Sure.
Question number one is, what would happen when we have more than 100,000 people in the city? Do we then have to submit a different plan?
Oh, sure. That's a great question. So, City of Seattle, even King County, those are Phase 1 jurisdictions. So that is a separate permit. I understand with the 2020 census, we may have a population of over 100,000. And so we are anticipating that the next permit cycle, that will be in summer of 2024, that we may indeed be a Phase 1 jurisdiction. That basically means that we will have increased requirements. So those 9 kind of activity areas that you saw, we will have more of those to do.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. The second question is in regards to public education and outreach. I know that some of the homeowners association within the city, they have a problem with pet owners that don't clean up after their pets. What can we do to address that issue? My neighborhood, for once, I mean, I can see it clearly in my video, so.
Oh, that's a great question. I know, it irks me every time I go for a walk on the BPA trail as well. And one thing we have looked at, so we have a fantastic education and outreach coordinator who I'm sure has presented to you all before, Catherine Strauss, and we and our surface water manager, Teresa Thurlow, have looked at various pet waste campaigns, not only through the regional STORM group that works regionally on education and outreach activities, but also kind of here locally trying to get together with pet-related businesses, whether those are, veterinary clinics or, PetSmart or things like that, to disseminate kind of our Scoop the Poop materials. We also do have those available at many of our community tabling events. And, this is kind of the tough thing about behavior change. We're trying to figure out, you can give people great information and then there's, maybe a disconnect between them actually doing it. And so we are working to try to figure out the best way to kind of tackle that. I will say I was at a meeting this morning where King County Health just got a grant to work in our Poverty Bay Shellfish District area, so kind of in the north, like Marine Hills, Redondo, Cold Creek kind of areas, Lakota, to look at pet waste and to try to get kind of, because we're having bacteria overloading in the shellfish beds, to try to see, how can we better get the message out. So we are working on it. But yes, unfortunately, that one is one that that's a tough one to tackle. Yeah.
Thank you.
I know I've seen Kathleen and Leah at the farmer's market a few times doing outreach, so I know that there's no shortage of there's not a lack of effort on this part. But it's
Thank you.
a long slog. Council President.
Thank you. I have several questions.
Great.
So you said that there's only one Phase 1 city in King County?
That's correct, City of Seattle.
So Bellevue has about 150,000 people?
Yes, so the current designations, the current classifications for the cities are actually based on the 1990 census. So they're fairly outdated, and we were actually a little surprised that they didn't use 2000 census data for this most recent permit cycle.
Okay.
But we're anticipating that with kind of increased measures that the state is likely, there's kind of been some rumors that it may be updated for the next permit cycle in 2024. But yes, I know it is surprising that, there are jurisdictions that are larger than that cap and have not gotten the Phase 1 yet.
So does it cost more money then to,
Yes.
you have to do more things,
Yes.
more staff time?
Yes.
Okay, then we should be ready for that.
Yes, agreed.
All right, so on page 25 or page 4 out of 21 in your report, it says that you're going to develop an ILA with the Federal Way Public Schools for the salmon release.
Oh, yes.
And then it talks about only having the 4th graders this year, which,
Yes. Oh, yes. So in the past, it has been offered as an experience for K through 6th grade classes who have kind of participated with the salmon tanks. So for those of you who are unaware, in all of our Federal Way public schools, there are salmon tanks where all of the kiddos get to raise coho salmon from just egg status up to fry, and then they release them in the Hylobos. However, with talks with the science coordinators, for the Federal Way Public Schools, who we partner with. They basically have looked at curriculum standards and all of the curriculum, and as we found at the release event, sometimes, teaching kindergartners about macroinvertebrates is a little difficult, and so some of the middle school kids, they think they're too cool for school. So we've decided that a lot of the curriculum is really aligned with fourth grade standards. And so it was something that we also wanted all kids, so kind of an equity issue as well, all students within the district to be able to have that experience and be able to look forward to that as a fourth grade experience.
Oh, okay. Then on page 6 of 21, you talk about an art program, public art, to increase education and awareness of the role of storm drains. And I am wondering if you'll be partnering with our art commission.
Sure, thank you, Teresa. I know, this is a little outside my normal purview.
Yes, we're partnering with the Arts Commission and the Diversity Commission to do the Storm Drain Art Walk project, which will be, I think it's the end of July. And we've actually been using their expertise, and they'll be on our selection committee for the artists as well.
So it'll be outside artists to come and do that?
Yes, ma'am. So there's a stipend for outside artists, and we have approval for 4 drain sites at Town Square Park and 1 drain site at the PAC. And I can send you examples of what the Storm Drain Art Walk artwork looks like.
Oh, that'd be
And ours is actually a little different because we're incorporating a public health aspect to it by putting out maps that show a loop that you can do, and here's this artwork that you can look at, and the information on the artists and things like that.
Oh, cool. And then I have a question on, it talks about on page 12 of 21, training the police personnel in the identification of illicit discharges and notification to appropriate authorities. So on a weekend, if someone were to see something on a weekend and wanted to report it, would they then call 911 and a police officer would come and take the report?
Oh, no, I'm sorry if that was unclear. It is that I actually do all of the illicit discharge detection and elimination training for city staff. And we recently, 2 years ago, began adding the police into that because they are out in the field so often or come upon vehicle accidents or other things within the community that they then report those to Public Works, to our hotline.
So if it happens on a weekend, then it just waits until Monday?
Sure.
So if we have a spill over the weekend and it's reported to us, we actually have our on-call response that will go out and do a cleanup if it's a public necessity. If it's private and we can actually hold the private party responsible, we'll have them clean it up right away. But we do have a weekend response for cleanup of spills.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Kochmar.
Thank you very much, Chair Kopang. So I have I'm going back to where I was 10 years ago when I was on the council, so I have some questions because this has changed a lot. So this program basically, I know it's the NPDES permit, but basically this whole program is paid for by our swim fees on our property taxes. Is that correct?
I'll just stay up.
Yes and no.
Not all of it, but some of it.
Yes, a large portion of our permit implementation is a swim charge, and that swim charge is not part of your tax, it's just on
A
your
separate,
tax
correct.
bill.
Correct. And so that amount now is how much a year?
I just went blank. 145?
Per-
Somewhere in that for single-family residential.
For a single-family
And then commercial properties, a lot of it depends on how much impervious surface
So
they have. And then in 2021, last year, council approved a rate structure change and a rate increase. So we'll actually have some changes next year.
So the total amount that is running this program, how much money?
8
comes in?
million, about. It's actually, last year was 8.6.
Okay, and so that, the stormwater then returns to the sound without being treated, is that correct? We don't treat it
Yes,
anymore.
that's correct.
So it
goes in
has
the
all the
drain.
oils and the septic tank, drain field overspill, and all goes into the sound.
Right.
So I know there was at one point where we talked about partnering with Lake Haven Utility District to it's called Lake Haven Water and Sewer, to take care of the discharge to be treated before it went. Have we ever, is it a
Actually,
piping problem or?
The opposite has happened. So many cities of the age of Seattle or Tacoma had combined systems where some of their overflow went into their, wastewater overflow went into their stormwaters. And actually, they had to separate their systems. And then part of that Phase 1 permit that the council chair was asked, or council president Honda was asking about, one of those Phase 1 requirements are these retrofits. And these retrofits are for treatment in various locations to strip out some of the contaminants before they go in the sound.
So that would, I'm trying to visualize what that would look like then. Is that some kind of like a little pumping station or a?
Well, in the city right now, on Highway 99, when the runoff goes into the drains on the side, there are actually 2 sets of what we call BMPs, best management practices. Some of them are filter vaults, so the water goes through a filter and we clean out those filters on a timed basis. And of course, they capture oils and some heavy metals, things like that. And then we have something called modular wetlands, which is exactly what it says. It's a wetland that's been put into basically a box, and the water goes through various organic processes to strip them out. So in places of high traffic, like Highway 99, or projects that are being done right now, such as some of the street projects, the roundabouts, things like that, they design under new requirements, and part of these new requirements are this kind of treatment.
So when we have a heavy rainfall and it's bubbling up out of the stormwater drains, are we over, let's see.
Under capacity.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. There are 2 locations in the city that we are watching because it appears we might be under capacity, but we haven't really narrowed down whether that's the case or whether there's some other issue.
So then my real question is, are we putting money aside for when we need to upgrade the system?
Yes, ma'am. So last year, council also approved a system development charge.
Okay.
And so basically a connection fee for anybody adding to our system. That's putting money in the bank for us to be able to upsize our system to handle development in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Copain.
Absolutely. Any additional questions?
I have one more.
Yes.
So on the last page, it talks about proposing the purchase of a city-owned Vector truck in 2021. Again, I ask how much that would cost, and do you have to hire a staff person to drive the truck, or how much is it gonna save us a year?
Yes, ma'am. So our effort to purchase a Vector in 2021 will augment our contracted Vector service. It won't replace it. And yes, under our rate adjustment and our new permit, we had a gap analysis done on here's the new requirements, here's our what we're funded to do now, and here's what we have to increase. And either we have to increase our maintenance crew by 2 in 2021 to handle the Vector services next year, or we have to increase our Vector contracts by a fair amount to handle that. So we're looking at it to augment our current services, not to replace.
Will we find a savings somewhere in there by having our own vehicle to do this?
We will find easier permit compliance.
Okay.
So the catch basins have to be serviced within 6 months of them being inspected. And with the contract and close to 13,000 catch basins in our inspection program, it's a balancing act on getting those inspected and cleaned. So this will help us augment our ability to meet our contract requirements and our emergency requirements. There might be some cost savings in less emergency requirements, and maybe some of our jetting we'll be able to do ourselves instead of having the contractor come in. But honestly, our Vector services needs are only going to increase.
Do most cities our size have their own?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, can I jump in on this?
Yes.
1 second. So the one thing I want to clarify, I almost called you Deputy Mayor. It's going to take me a while to break that habit. So, Council President, One of the conversations that we had as part of going through this process and upgrading and updating the swim CIP and rate structure in the fall was this conversation. And where we left it was we would look at exactly the question you asked, and that would be part of the 21-22 budget discussion of which way that went. So as part of the conversation that happened last year, council did not authorize hiring additional staff or increasing it, but what we did do is we said, here's the amount of money it's going to cost one way or another, whether that's increasing the Vector Services contract from where we are today to do this work or to bring in staff in a truck. And then we would collect information on that and then cycle back to that as part of the budget process when we get to that later this year. So that answer hasn't changed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Committee members, any additional questions? All right, and do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to forward option 1 to the March 17, 2020 City Council consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Leah, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Teresa, I see you didn't go far. So that's good, because we're going to need you. Teresa, that item, our topic C is the Vector Service Contract Bid Award. I think we've already covered that. Do I have a motion? We'll let you fill in the blanks, okay.
So, first of all, I'd just like to mention that I have allergies and I have an allergic cough right now, a little tickle in the throat. It's just allergies, I promise you. So,
Me too.
Good evening, Committee Chair, Council President, committee members, engaged members of the public. As mentioned, I'm Teresa Thurlow, the Surface Water Division Manager, and I'm here tonight to talk to the Swim Vector and Infrastructure Maintenance Services Contract authorization to award. So the policy question before the council tonight is, should City Council award the Swim Vector and Infrastructure Maintenance Services Contract to the lowest responsive responsible bidder? Whew, that's a long one. So we went out for bid, and we had 3 bids that came in, and the lowest responsive responsible bidder is Action Services Corporation, and they actually came in under the engineer's estimate. Their bid, when it was corrected, was $247,752.50. Now, our budget, when I came to council for authorization to bid it, I did mention that our approved budget did not meet our needs, but that we were going to wait to see how the bids came in to look at the adjustment needed. And so tonight, I'm also requesting an adjustment to the swim budget for the 2020 swim budget, and that would be this $18,318.50. And that actually will come out of a portion of our revenue increase. We had a 2.3% increase this year, and that would come out of there. So the options considered before you are award the Swim Vector and Infrastructure Maintenance Services contract to Action Services, the lowest responsive responsible bidder, in the amount of $247,752.50, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract, or reject all bids and rebid the project, return to committee for further action. The mayor's recommendation is to forward option 1 to the March 17th City Council consent agenda, and I'm available for questions.
Teresa, thank you. Committee members, any questions? Council members? All right. Hearing none, do you have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to forward option 1 to the March 17, 2020 consent agenda for approval.
And I will second that.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, motion carries unanimously. Teresa, we're on to topic D, which is approval to lease the swim project or parcel to active construction.
Sure, so my favorite thing in the world is to get more money for our program.
Great.
So, no, I'm just kidding. So, the issue before you tonight is, should City Council approve the temporary lease of the swim parcel located at 29601 Pacific Highway South for use by Active Construction Incorporated? So, we own a parcel, and we use it for various needs within the city. And when we don't need it, we have in the past leased this parcel out for various uses. And this parcel exists because we have these very large underground storage tanks on this parcel as a portion of the parcel. And it turns out that the South Dash Point roadway improvement, and I keep pointing to Christine because that's her project. So ACI has requested the use of that property for their laydown area for their project from March to June of this year. So as I mentioned, this parcel, this is Pacific Highway right here. This is Dash Point Road right here, and Lakota Park is somewhere over in here.
Sacagawea.
Yeah, and then, Sacagawea, thank you, I did say the wrong one. And then, so this is the laydown site right there. And as you can see, these are our tanks that I mentioned. And then this is the large gravelled area that is available for use this summer. We don't have a need to use it this summer. So the lease terms would be March through June of 2020 for $552 per month. We took the previous lease and added CPI to make the lease terms. And the contractor would be required to barricade off the area where our tanks are because we don't want anything driven or stored over the top of that. So the options before you tonight are to approve the temporary lease of the SWIM parcel located at 29601 Pacific Highway South for use by Active Construction Incorporated, or do not use the temporary, authorize the temporary lease of the SWIM parcel by Active Construction Incorporated. And I realize that it should be 1 and 2, not dot and dot. The mayor's recommendation is to forward option 1 to the March 17, 2020 City Council consent agenda for approval. And I'm available for questions. Hopefully I didn't go too fast, but I know there's a large agenda.
You did great, Teresa, thank you. And this, actually, we approved a similar lease just last year.
Yes, sir.
For the construction,
It was construction of a storage facility.
storage facility there on Pacific Highway.
Exactly.
So, Councilmember Moore?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, okay. Do we have any questions? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion? Teresa, you're getting off real easy here.
I move to forward option 1 to the March 17th, 2020 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Teresa, thank you for your presentation. Next, we have topic E, which is the 2020 Asphalt Overlay Bid Award, and John Cole will be presenting. John, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Chair Kopang, President Honda, members of council. I'm here to present the 2020 Asphalt Overlay Project Bid Award. Policy question in front of you today is, should the council award the 2020 Asphalt Overlay Project to the lowest responsible bidder, which turned out to be Miles Resources. Background information, 4 bids were received from Miles Resources, Tucci and Sons, Icon Materials, and Lakeside. The lowest bid was $2,183,610.45. Available funding for this project is $2,746,163, in part from the fuel tax, overlay budget, fuel tax, real estate excise, 2019 carry forward, the Ridge development, which is funded, the PSC joint construction agreement, which was authorized, TIB grants, and traffic impact fees for complete streets. So the estimated project cost is $2,183,610 based on the low bid, with a 5% construction contingency. And then the pavement management system, in-house design, printing and advertising and such, brings it to $2.7 million. So the options considered are award all schedules for the 2020 asphalt overlay project to Miles Resources, the lowest responsible bidder, in the amount of $2,183,610, and approve a 5% contingency of $109,180, plus the supplemental ridge work of $180,000, for a total of $2,472,790, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Or option 2, reject all bids, and direct staff to rebid the project and return to the committee for further action. Mayor recommends forwarding option 1 to the March 17th, 2020 City Council consent agenda for approval. And I'm available for any questions.
John, thank you for the presentation. Committee members, any questions? Council President.
Thank you. I have a question on the ridge, and I live there, so just to let everyone know. So under the expenditures, it says $237,424, and then the supplemental ridge work is $180. What's the difference?
Yes, ma'am. The difference was we came in low bids came in with the engineer's estimate and whatnot. We tried to ballpark it at the approximately $585,897 that we received from the ridge for that project. Came in really low, so we were able to add additional work to get the best work for the dollar that was invested.
Great. So when you go in and you redo the roads, that's when you fix the sidewalks if they need to be fixed, is that correct?
We will fix curb ramps, ADA
Right.
curb ramps, if the street is being overlaid. It's a requirement of the ADA. Sidewalk panels, if they're non-conforming, if there's a lip, such, we'll fix those as well. The curbing around the islands in the middle of any streets that are overlaid will be replaced. So, yeah.
And this work will start when?
Approximately the first part of April. We have some other holds up in other schedules, so the ridge and PVR will be first off.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Councilmember Kochmar.
So, thank you very much. So the street, is this the total street overlay program for the year? Will this be the total?
No, ma'am. There's also, Jake could probably answer better.
So
Others.
this is the overlay program, yes. So there will be overlays that are done as part of other projects.
Sure.
Like where we're going in and putting in sidewalk and stuff, but yes, this is the
So
overlay
how much do
program.
we actually take in from our utility tax for the street overlay?
The utility tax doesn't contribute anything to the overlay program at this point.
I'm sorry, what?
The utility tax does not contribute significantly to the overlay program. It's funded by MVET. So the fuel tax?
So because we had a street overlay program funded by the utility tax, is that not enough to cover it?
We did historically. The utility tax pays for other things at this point, not the overlay program. So what is fueling this is on the screen that John pulled up. So you are correct. Historically, at one point in time, that the utility tax funded the overlay program. That has been redirected by council to other city priorities, and the overlay program is funded at a level of $1.5 million per year, primarily out of MVET, which is the motor vehicle fuel tax,
I
and
see
real
that.
estate excise
Yeah,
tax.
I saw that. So I'm just wondering, how much really does come in from the utility tax for the overlay? The portion, the
nothing.
percentage part for the overlay?
No money from the utility tax goes to the overlay program anymore.
Thank you.
All right, any additional questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, the committee recommends forwarding option 1 to the March 17, 2020 City Council consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, motion carries unanimously. John, thank you. Next, we have Naveen Chandra, and it's going to be, it's topic F, which is a 2020-2021 Neighborhood Traffic Safety Project Bid Award.
Good evening, Chair Kupang, Council President Honda, members of the council. For the record, I'm Naveen Chandra, Senior Capital Engineer at Public Works. I'm here to present the bid results for the 2021 Neighborhood Traffic Safety Program. Policy question: should the City Council award the 2021 Neighborhood Traffic Safety Program to the lowest responsible bidder? Background information: we received 4 quotes, which was reviewed on February 10th, for the 2021 Neighborhood Traffic Safety Program. The lowest responsible bidder is Tony Lane Paving LLC with a total quote of $58,909.20. If you recollect, back in October, we had bid this project. We had received only one bid. We had rejected that bid. We went back to the bid and we got a better price, and this is the lowest bid we received. Available funds, the traffic safety program is funded from the 2020 traffic operational budget of $40,000, 2021 traffic operational budget of $40,000 for a total of $80,000. Estimated expenditures are 2020 construction cost would be $30,000, 2021 construction cost would be $30,000, contingency of $6,000, and construction management, that's city staff time of $10,000 for a total of $76,000. Options considered: award the 2020-21 Neighborhood Traffic Safety Program to Tony Lane Paving LLC, the lowest responsible bidder up to the amount of $60,000, and approve a 10% contingency of $6,000 and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Option 2 would be to reject all the bids for the 2021 Neighborhood Traffic Safety Program and direct staff to rebid the project and return to the committee for further action. Mayor recommends forwarding option 1 to the March 17, 2020 City Council consent agenda for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Naveen, thank you for the presentation. Just one question I have is, Tony Lind, I've not heard that name as the name of a contractor. Are they new to Federal Way, or they've done business with us in the past? And
they've done business with us. The same company was the lowest bidder last time, which was in 2016, 17, I believe.
Okay, I've just forgotten
Yeah.
that. Thank you. Okay. All right. Any questions from the committee members? Council members? Hearing none, do I have a motion? Oh,
I move to forward option 1 to the March 17th, 2020 City Council consent agenda for approval.
Second.
okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Naveen, thank you. Christine Mullen, we're going to talk about topic G, which is the Southwest Dash Point Road and 47th Avenue Southwest Compact Roundabout 30% design report. I can't wait for that roundabout to get in, so let's hope we can make it work.
Yes. Okay, yes, I'm Christine Mullen, and I'm here for the 30% design report for this project. The policy question before you is, should the City Council authorize staff to proceed with the design of the Southwest Dash Point Road and 47th Avenue Southwest Compact Roundabout, and then return to LUTC and Council at 85% design completion for further reports and authorization? A little bit of background information. This project will put in a compact roundabout at the intersection of SR 509 and 47th Avenue Southwest, which is like the end of Hoyt and where it intersects with 509. And the roundabout serves as a countermeasure to fatal and serious injury collision history at this T intersection, which currently has a stop sign on 47th Avenue Southwest. Here's a photo of the current project location, which is a little bit skewed by Google Maps, but so to date, we've completed the topographic survey out there, have project design completed to 30%, and have begun the coordination process with WashDOT, since it is a state highway. Moving forward, we will keep taking the project design to 85%. We'll coordinate with the franchise utilities, prepare the preliminary contract specifications, and this project has federal funds, so it will require NEPA for the environmental process. Here's a quick schematic of what the conceptual layout would look like for the intersection, and then also an example. The roundabout that went in last year at Military and 298th was also a compact roundabout, and so it will be similar to that. For estimated expenditures, we have design, construction costs with a 10% construction contingency, and then construction management inspection. We're looking at a total of $973,000. The available funding, we have a federal grant for $815,000, and then miscellaneous and transfers of $15,000 for $830,000. So right now there is a budget shortfall of $143,000. We're saying that when we come back at the 85%, we will have more refined project costs at that point. So So we would have a better idea if there still is a shortfall and we need additional funds, or if we're able to do it within the available funding. The options before you tonight are, number one, authorize staff to proceed with the design of the Southwest Dash Point Road and 47th Avenue Southwest Compact Roundabout and return to the LUTC and Council at 85% design completion for further reports and authorization. Or two, do not authorize staff to proceed with this project and provide direction to staff. The mayor's recommendation is option number one, being forwarded to the March 17th Council consent agenda. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Christine, thank you for the presentation. Committee members, any questions? Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you.
Oh, Council President Honda.
That's okay. I'll respond to both for a long time, I'm sure. So were the folks who live around this proposed roundabout, or the roundabout, were they surveyed about it, or?
You mean prior to selecting that a roundabout would go in there?
Right. Or how, do they know that it's happening? So that we know as a council that they know that it's happening, and
I will double check if we sent notifications on that. I know there is a lot of, there's a city parcel. This corner here is South King Fire and Rescue, and I know they're aware. We typically send letters before we go out and do the topographic surveying, and I would have to confirm with our consultant that they did send those, but.
yeah, there's some houses right up. Either way, there's folks that live around that.
Right, we
So-
typically do, so I'm gonna say, I believe so, but
Okay.
I have to
Awesome, thank you.
confirm that.
Yeah, if you could just respond by email, I
Sure.
think that'd be good. Thank you. All right, any additional questions? All right, hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to forward option one to the March 17, 2020 consent agenda for approval.
Second?
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Christine, thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
hope that you can have more fine costs for us next time round, because I think it's definitely an intersection that needs some attention. So,
Yes.
yeah, thank you. Okay, on we go. Then next is project, or topic H, which is project acceptance for the Military Road South pavement repair. Jeff Hahn.
All right, good evening, Chair Kopang, council members, committee members. My name is Jeff Hahn. I'm the capital engineer for the city of Federal Way, and I'm presenting the Military Road South pavement repair final acceptance to committee. Prior to release of retainage on a public works construction project, the city council must accept the work as complete to meet the State Department of Revenue and State Department of Labor and Industries requirements. The Military Road South pavement repair project contracted with Pavement Maintenance of Washington is complete. The final construction contract amount is $159,371. This is $45,628 below the $205,000 budget that was approved by the City Council on August 13, 2019. The options before committees are, one, authorize final acceptance of the Military Road South pavement repair project constructed by Pavement Maintenance of Washington in the amount of $159,371 as complete, or two, do not authorize final acceptance of the completed Military Road South pavement repair project constructed by Pavement Maintenance of Washington as complete, and provide direction to staff. The mayor recommends forwarding option one to March 17, 2020 City Council consent agenda for approval. And staff is available for any questions you may have.
Jeff, thank you for the presentation. Committee members, any questions? Council members? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to forward the proposed final acceptance of the Military Road South pavement repair project to the March 17, 2020 consent agenda for approval.
I will second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Jeff, thank you.
I thank you.
On to topic I, which is request to modify the Transportation Systems Capital Improvement Plan, and we have Sarah Hamill.
Okay, there we go. Good evening. I'm Sarah Hamill. I'm the Capital Engineering Manager, and I'm here to request the committee to modify the Transportation Systems Capital Improvement Plan. The policy question before you is, should the City Council authorize staff to modify the Transportation Systems Capital Improvement Plan by authorizing design expenditures for Project 214 in 2020 and create Capital Project 226. So I'm going to go through each of these projects individually. So the cost to the city for the Southwest 320th Street Preservation Project was included within the approved budget under the CIP plan as Project 214. So some of the background information is in May 2018, we submitted a grant application, and in that application, we were anticipating funding in 2022. The grant was not awarded. However, information pending might come down that we could be offered or awarded construction funding off the contingency list in 2021. So we're wanting to complete our design in 2020 so we have a construction-ready project. And we're looking at design costs of $49,000 in 2020, construction costs of $788,000 in 2021. So our total project cost is $978,000. Our available funding, so this would be based on grant approval or grant award in 2021, is $577,000, and planned motor vehicle excise tax of $401,000. So total budget $978,000. Okay, so I'll go on to the next one, which is the South 320th Flagpole Rehabilitation Project. This was not included within the Transportation System CIP plan, and we're requesting to create Project 226. So this project will include in-kind replacement of the flagpole to accommodate the city-owned flag, and we would have restoration of sidewalk panels, irrigation, landscaping, and restoration of the lighting. So our estimated expenditures on this project are outlined here: engineering, construction contingency, and construction engineering, for a total cost of $150,000. And the available funding would come from the risk fund, which is anticipated to be reimbursement from the responsible party of $150,000. So options considered are approve the proposed request to modify the Transportation System CIP, or do not approve the proposed request and provide direction to staff. The mayor recommends forwarding option 1 to the March 17, 2020 City Council consent agenda for approval, and I can answer questions.
Sarah, thank you for the presentation. Quick question. I think the $49,000 is really all that we would be on the hook for at this point, because the project wouldn't go forward without grants at this point, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're looking to move the $49,000 to 2020 so we can complete the design.
Yes, but basically it's a project that's needed.
Yes.
And it would be in our best interest to be prepared if the grant funding did come through.
Absolutely. So having construction-ready project, we'll tell the grant funding agency, look, we're ready. We can bid this immediately if you give us the money.
Yeah, and typically grants come within a certain time frame, and if there's not a project that conforms to it, that money just goes away.
Right. We
Or
say
fine.
pass. We're not ready.
Or
We
or
don't.
it goes to, and it'll go to another city.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Very good. Thank you. Committee members, any questions? Councilmember Coach
Yeah.
Mark.
So I see we're, obviously, we're looking for reimbursement from the responsible party. Did they have insurance, the one that hit the pole?
I'm going to defer that to EJ.
They did,
They-
yes.
Adequate insurance?
That is something that's still being figured out. They did have insurance. They are aware we are pursuing replacement in kind, and our legal department has been working with our insurance company's legal department.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I move to forward the proposed request to modify the Transportation Systems CIP to the March 17, 2020 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Sarah, thank you. Next up, we have topic J is the authorization to submit transportation grant applications, and Desiree Winkler.
Yes, I guessed correctly. Good evening, Chair Copang, Council President, committee members, members of council. Here we go again. What? Every year, right? We try to go get more money. So the policy question is, should the city council authorize the submittal of grant applications for transportation projects? So this would be through Puget Sound Regional Council, the county-wide grant application process. Those will be due May 1st, 2020. Staff, as usual, carefully looks at the criteria for the grant to determine our best chance for success. So the 4 projects that we recommend applying for this time around, actually one of them is the one we hope to get off the contingency list, is the preservation project that we just asked for authorization to move the design ahead. If we're not successful in getting money off the contingency list, we want to be applied for this grant again. So that is on Southwest 320th Street between 11th Avenue Southwest and 3rd Place Southwest. Another preservation project we propose to apply for is Military Road South. That would be the very south end of Military Road, basically just north of Highway 18 to South 320th Street. Both of those are about $1 million projects. We propose to do about a 50% grant match. This is strategic in the fact that we basically need to be able to get enough points to compete well. And this is kind of the rule of thumb now for all the other agencies are providing about 50% match. But 50% is better than 0, so we'll take it. The next project is adaptive signal control in the city center. We call it Phase B. This would provide us the ability to do some enhancements on some of the monitoring and the detection within the city center. We are implementing the adaptive signal control project right now. However, we did not have enough funds to do as much as we would have liked on the detection side and the monitoring side. This grant would give us the opportunity to do more of those enhancements. And then the next project would be Pacific Highway Non-Motorized Corridor, which would be a trail, basically, parallel to Pacific Highway on 16th Avenue South between 304th Avenue and 288th Avenue. We have an existing grant for that project right now. We are doing design. In this program, we have to apply for one phase at a time. So the next phase to apply for this particular project would be the right-of-way phase. And that project's $680,000. We propose an $80,000 match, as well as the adaptive signal control project. The match for the preservation projects is proposed to come out of our asphalt overlay program. That is what we have done traditionally in the past. The match for the adaptive signal control and the 16th Avenue Trail right-of-way are proposed to come out of future transportation capital funds, which are consist of real estate excise tax and motor vehicle excise tax. And we historically get about $1.6 million a year infused into the capital transportation program for purposes such as this. Just a little bit more detail of those projects. This is the 16th Avenue Trail. Again, the idea was when Pacific Highway South was developed into the corridor that it was, it's generally high speed. It's not where bicyclists like to ride, so we did not provide for any bike lanes on Pacific Highway, with the idea being that there would be a parallel trail and opportunities for folks. This is the first of those. So 16th Avenue South, and then there is some unopened right-of-way of 16th Avenue South, as well as a utility easement that would get you all the way up to 288th Street. Adaptive signal control, these are basically all the signals that were included in the city center portion of adaptive signal control. So these are the signals that would, if needed, get the enhancements that we weren't able to do with the current phase. And then the two preservation projects, those where they're located. The one on the left at 320th Street between 11th Avenue Southwest and 3rd Place Southwest. And then again, Military Road, the portion between Highway 18 and South 320th Street. Options considered. Option 1, to authorize staff to submit the proposed grant applications for transportation projects. And Option 2, do not authorize staff to submit the proposed grant applications and provide direction to staff. The mayor recommends forwarding Option 1 to the council meeting consent agenda. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Desiree, thank you for your presentation. I think one thing I've found true in my time on the council is you guys do a great job getting grants, and you usually come under budget. So thank you for that. It's a great reputation. But any questions?
Yeah.
Councilmember Moore.
Desiree, I'd like to know what's behind door number 2. Is that a grant or no?
There's hopefully a grant behind all the doors.
Exactly. Yeah, like my colleague just stated, grants are obviously always a good thing to get, and I appreciate all of your efforts in that. I think you might have said it, but I just want to hear it again. Where are these grants coming from? Is it the county? Is that what I heard you say?
No,
or
these are
state or
federal grants.
Federal grants, okay.
The program is ran through Puget Sound Regional Council. That's how the
Okay.
federal money comes in to the state. It comes through our Metropolitan Planning Organization, which we're a part of the Puget Sound Regional Council. There's two different programs they run. They run a program that's a regional program that allows all 4 counties to compete together on more global regional impact projects. And then each county within PSRC, the 4 of them, have their own competition. So we will be competing for these 4 projects within all the King County limits and jurisdictions.
Great. Out of curiosity, when you look at the work that you do, how much of your budget is from federal grants?
On the capital side
Just-
for
yeah.
transportation,
Sure.
my gut tells me that somewhere between 60 and 70% of our capital funding, at least, comes from grants.
Federal grants.
Federal, state, local grants, any grants. Basically, we wouldn't have a very large capital program if we didn't have grants to supplement what we're doing.
Okay, well, thank you.
Councilmember Coachmore.
So Desiree, so this is for information only, so there is a possibility we wouldn't get any of these funds if we're not competitive.
That is correct.
And so how did we do last year with PSRC?
We're almost batting 1,000. The last one we have not received is the one we just talked about, was the preservation project
Yeah.
on 320th. We are on the contingency list. There just isn't a lot of preservation money. We did get one preservation project on 356th. A lot of times that's also political will, as we're sitting around the table, is that everybody gets one, not everybody gets 2. So, we got, out of the grants, the 4 grants we applied for, we got 3 of them.
So those are the ones we have applied for. So how are we doing comparison with other cities like Bellevue, Redmond, other cities on the east side?
I don't know specifically how well we're doing as compared to those on the east side. Their projects are a lot different in scope and at this time that they've applied for. So sometimes it's harder to get grants that cost $4 million and $3 million as opposed to getting grants that we're requesting $500,000 for. Some of the criteria is cost effectiveness. And so by making our grants a little bit smaller, it's actually gives us more success sometimes than projects that are larger. So, you know,
The only reason I bring that up is because I noticed in the past that Redmond, Bellevue, some of the cities that are more politically involved, let's say, and the cities that have a higher capita per income were more blessed with grant funding. And I saw that personally. And so I'm just pointing that out, not for anything other than just to say, sometimes I think we get the short end of the stick down here in the South County area.
I don't see that. They, in this particular program, this isn't an earmark program. This is competition based on set criteria. I would tend to agree with you that programs that maybe come from earmarks do require a certain amount of political involvement and influence, but these are fairly objective criteria that I think that we do a very good job at making sure we do our best to put our best foot forward and are very successful.
Thank you.
Chair, can I add one
Yes.
thing to that? So, and Desiree is right on, and I'd like to emphasize, assuming we come off the contingency list and that gets funded, we got every single grant that we applied for federal last year, which is a amazing feat. The other thing I will say is to your point, Councilmember Kochmar, a lot of this, and Desiree mentioned it in her presentation too, it comes down to you have to show those matches. So we almost come out that we're limited in what we can apply to based on the available funding that we have to be able to match. So that is a constant uphill battle that we're fighting of coming up with a competitive match to be able to go after the grants. So when we start talking about some of the bigger grants that you're talking about, instead of 500,000, that means we have to come up with 2 million if we're going to go after a $4 million grant. And that's just, it's out of our ballpark right now.
Desiree, one more question, at least from me. One of the reasons we're successful is because we pick projects that actually conform. Can you just kind of go through the process that we go through as a city to identify, or what Public Works go through to identify which projects would best qualify for grant funding?
Absolutely. This particular grant program, when we're getting federal funds, we have to meet federal guidelines and also the regional planning requirements. And regional planning is very focused on what they call designated regional centers and being able to focus their funds on those regional centers. We are fortunate enough in Federal Way that we do have a designated regional center. It corresponds with our city center limits. And so any project that we have that we can focus on, either the road serves that regional center or it's within the regional center, that's where we are going to score the best. So we make sure that in this particular program that we work on meeting that particular criteria.
Great.
Other programs, we were here last month requesting authorization to apply for safety grants. Safety grants are very specific as well. They require that, we basically show value, that we are able to reduce the number of serious and fatal collisions. And so the projects that we select are focused on those areas that have historically had serious and fatal collisions, and we come up with projects that will actually help reduce the chance of that happening again. So we have a lot of experienced folks on our staff that work through this. We're active on all the committees that we need to be so that we understand the criteria, and staff does have an opportunity to influence the criteria and make things more clear. As you're there and you understand the criteria, you're able to write your grants and pick the right projects as well.
Desiree, thank you. Any additional questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to forward option 1 to the March 17, 2020 Council Consent Agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Desiree, thank you. All right, so on we go to item or topic K, which is a new singular wireless PCS LLC franchise ordinance. And Desiree, I have the pleasure of your presenting again.
It's going to look really familiar to last month, except the name change.
Yes.
Right? Last month it was Verizon. This month, New Singular Wireless. Policy question: should the city grant New Singular Wireless PCS LLC a franchise to install, operate, maintain, and repair a telecommunications network consisting of small wireless facilities and certain macro wireless facilities in, across, over, along, under, and through and below the city of Federal Way? So New Singular Wireless requested a franchise in order to install small wireless telecommunications and continue operations of 4 existing macro wireless facilities. The application was posted on the city's website. It is for a 10-year term. There's a franchise bond of $50,000 that must be posted. Work is also guaranteed through performance and maintenance bonds, and the insurance is consistent with city standards and other franchises. Here we go again, right? We all have our wireless devices on us, and we're hoping that it's reliable. In order to be more reliable, they have to densify the system. And so what that looks like, instead of just the macro towers that are out there, that they densify with these small wireless facilities. This example is shown, the small wireless facilities being put on streetlight poles. That is communicated back through either the backbone of a fiber optic network or even communicated back to the macro towers. This is what an example of one could look like up close if they chose to replace one of our streetlights. There is an antenna there at the top. There is a need for some equipment boxes. We can conceal those in various different ways. This one is through a banner, and then it could be tied into the fiber optic cable that is underground. There are also 4 existing macro wireless facilities in the city, and these 4 locations shown generally toward the north end of the city. And what these look like, here's an example of the one located that they call Decatur. It is actually located off of 21st Place Southwest, just basically west of Lakota Middle School. You can see that the portion that applies to us is the antenna and the equipment that is set on an existing Puget Sound Energy pole. That's the antenna right at the top, and then there's some equipment. And then behind the right-of-way, they tie into their own equipment, and they have to lease that from private property owner. So that's what those macro wireless facilities look like. And then again, there's 4 of them that are within our right-of-way on Puget Sound Energy poles. So the financial impacts of this franchise, they provided a $5,000 deposit for the development of the franchise. If they choose to do wireless facilities on our streetlight poles, they will have to get a master license or lease. That would then get us at this time $270 per year per location. As they add more facilities, there will be small cell permits and or master license addendum that would be specific to each deployment and location, and they are required to get right-of-way permits for the installation of these facilities. So the options considered, One, recommend adoption of the proposed new singular wireless franchise ordinance and forward it to City Council for first reading. Option 2, do not adopt the proposed ordinance and provide direction to staff. The mayor recommends option 1 for franchise ordinance adoption, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Desiree, thank you for this presentation. Committee members, I think Councilmember Moore, no? Okay. Lydia, Councilmember Dawson.
Yeah, thank you. So the $270 per month, per year, is that for the 4 towers or facilities?
No, those ones are actually existing, and we're folding them into this agreement. Those are located on Puget Sound Energy facilities, and so they pay Puget Sound Energy for those particular ones.
Okay.
If they choose to deploy small wireless on one of our street lights, then that's when we would get the $270 per month. I would like it to be per month. It's per year.
And do you know why they're all located in the north end of the city?
I don't know. That's probably something that they can answer better than I can. My guess is that's just where they have coverage needs, so.
Council President?
Is there something that can be done to make them more attractive?
What, the macro facilities? Oh, wow.
Can we put
yeah.
flowers on them?
Can you put banners on those?
Flowers?
Yeah, banners or something. I mean,
banners.
they're
Hanging
just-
baskets?
Those are, I agree. Those were done, again, they've been in since, there's been 2 other 10-year agreements. They've been in for, some of them, over 10, 15 years. And they may have been installed under, less strict rules than we have today. Macro facilities just have a whole different set of rules. And so in the future, I hope that as new ones get deployed, we can do a better job.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think, quite frankly, we could establish a policy as a council that we want a certain level of presentation or appearance. I know that in Long Beach, they have palm trees. That other neighborhoods or other cities I've been in, they have fir trees. So there's a way to conceal those that I think we have not explored yet as a city, and I think it would make sense for us to do so. And if you guys have any guidance for us on how to do that, I think that'd be helpful.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay. Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question regarding the macro towers, the 4 big ones that we have in the city. In terms of health related, for those people who live near those big towers, do we have any information or concern about those?
I don't have any information that I can share at that time. I certainly can reach out and talk with the representatives and see if they have any information.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
I think prior to installation, though, wasn't that study done? Or isn't that a requirement?
I don't know the answer to that. I
Okay.
wasn't here
Right.
when those ones were deployed, so I would have to go back and take a look.
I know that with the 5G antennas, that'll be a key component of a final approval, is that any health issues are addressed or
We do.
resolved.
Yes,
Yeah.
we do have requirements under the small wireless development guidelines that we put together that they are required to submit an RF study.
Okay. Very good. Any additional questions? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to forward the proposed ordinance to first reading on March 17, 2020.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Desiree, thank you very much. Next up, we have Doc Hanson. We'll be discussing topic L, which is the council action on a 60% petition for the Pape annexation. Doc, welcome to LUTC.
Thank you. Members of the committee, council, if you'll recall, last November, you passed a recommendation by the mayor to look at an annexation for a proposal for an annexation just west of the freeway. And September 26th, the city received a notice of intent to annex by one of these owners, the owner of parcel A, which represented about 16% of the total land value. Total proposed area for the annexation were these seven parcels, A through G, totaling 21.44 acres. In terms of the existing uses, there were 3 single-family homes on these. There are 3 of them are vacant, and one of them has a duplex. Again, the location of this parcel is, this is 320th, this is I-5, so it's just as you cross I-5 on the north side of 320th. It's west of 32nd, right here. If annexed, the property is proposed to be used by, well, the group, the Pape Group, is a company, so that they can sell and service Kenworth vehicles, which would become a sub-regional facility, replacing one of those that they have right now. The applicant submitted a 60% petition on December 20th, and the city council, if you wish to move this forward, hold a public hearing on March 17th to accept or deny the petition. If the council approves the request to annex, then at the public hearing, then it will be moved to the BRB for review and their hearing, at which time it can come back to the next council for their adoption of ordinance. And we're anticipating that if council moves this forward, this would happen about the middle of May. So there's a recommendation to annex the property, and if it is annexed, then there is a recommendation for the zone designation of the area to the comprehensive plan, which is now a BC zone. So if it was annexed in the into the city, it would be a BC. And it's also recommended that there be a requirement of the owners of the potential annexation to assume their proportionate role and share of the city indebtedness. The options you have before you tonight are to send the proposed annexation to the full council for a vote on annexation. You can send it to the council with conditions, or you can recommend denial to the council. Mayor has a recommendation on the annexation to annex, and that it be forwarded to the city for the action of the BRB for hearing, and that the land, if annexed, will be zoned BC as shown in the comp plan. The city council require the owners to assume the property's proportionate share. Before I get into questions, I would like to call your attention to the packet that was sent to you. It's a little confusing, and I'll try to explain that. I can blame it on Margaret because she put it all together, and I am the dummy and have to pick it up and carry it out. But your attachment A at the very beginning should actually be attachment B, and I'm going to ask right after the agenda bill. Says attachment A, resolution accepting a 60% petition to the annex. There's 2 attachment A's.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll get to that. If you look under the resolution, there's the second page, it says attachment A. Resolution accepting the 60% petition to annex. So then you see the resolution, and right after that it says exhibit A. So all of those exhibits are to be tied to the resolution when and if it is adopted. So you go through all of those exhibits, then you get to attach about a third of the way through, you get attachment B, staff report to the LUTC. So what I'm going to do is to reverse those so that this is A, or the staff report to the LUTC that has all of the attachments. And the second one is going to be just the resolution accepting the 60% with all the exhibits, so it will go backwards. And I apologize for that, because I was looking at this and getting ready for presentation, I said, I don't understand this. And then, once I went through it, I did, so I wanted to bring that to your attention, that I wasn't totally overlooking everything.
Could I ask, Exhibit G, correspondence from Lake Haven Water and Sewer District, there's nothing there. Was there supposed to be?
There is. I have it in my packet.
Okay,
Then it wasn't sent. Apparently it wasn't PDF'd into the, but there is a letter indicating with Lake Haven that they don't see any increased cost in providing service to this. The fire district does not see any increased cost, and neither does police, because they're basically already servicing it. So
Okay,
there wouldn't
thanks.
be any increased cost. So again, I'll reorganize this and answer any questions you might have regarding this.
Okay. Well, committee members, any questions? Council President.
thank you. So did all the property owners sign on then?
Yes, all of them did.
Okay.
Councilmember Coachmore.
So this is going to be sell and service Kenworth vehicles?
Yes.
Oh, good. Do we get the sales tax from?
Yes.
Yes.
Woo-hoo.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Right now, it's a 5-point, the land value itself, along with the improvements, it's allowed just over $5 million. We anticipate that to go way up to where we can get all the tax revenue from that activity, because it'll be inside the city. My first question to them was, why do you want to come to the city? As a consultant, I used to tell my clients that it would be very good for them to go into the city because they actually pay less taxes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that. Pape understood that, and also they didn't want to go through the processes of the county because ours are a little easier.
Yeah. I also think it's a prime location, being adjacent to the freeway.
Yes,
It'll
it
be good-
is.
Good for them for advertising. My understanding in talking to Tim Johnson, who's our Economic Development Director, is that this is equivalent to about 5 car dealerships in revenue generation. So it's substantial. Yeah, so it's a small footprint compared to 5 auto dealerships, and a good revenue. And I think our history has been that we annex into the city revenue generating properties. And so this would certainly follow along with that tradition. So, or that practice. Any additional questions, comments, concerns? No? Hearing none? Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to forward option 1 to the March 17, 2020 City Council meeting for a public hearing.
I will second that.
Good. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Doc, thank you for that. Now on to topic M, which is the public outreach on the Tacoma Dome Link extension. This is for information only?
That's correct.
Yes.
I just wanted to bring the council up to speed with what's happening with the Tacoma Dome Link public outreach. If you'll recall, back in November, in December 6th, there was a public outreach, there was an open house. We went to the Planning Commission to receive any comments that they might have to proposed or suggested ideas that the community may want around the transit station. We received We took comments in digitally or by Facebook. We also took in comments at these meetings. From the comments, it was very interesting because I noted this in the short memorandum. It was pretty clear that most of the people within that area or around that area or within the city itself indicated that they would like to have some type of pedestrian-oriented activity. So some medium density to high density residential activities with courtyards, walking areas, primarily directed towards pedestrians. So on the other hand, in another question, they said, what would you like to preserve or what would you like to see? And a lot of them came back as, we want to preserve the parking lots. We want to be able to find easy access and things like that. So in one side, they're saying we want this type of characteristic, but on the other side, we want automobiles. So I think one of the purposes of the second outreach is just to clarify that and to get down to the bare bones of, you got to have one or the other. What kinds of timing are we dealing with? And it goes back to a lot of the stuff that I did in the past, which was basically coming to people and say, what do you want? What do you like? What do you dislike? Do you like the emblem of Federal Way? Do you like the shopping activity? Do you like actually living in Federal Way, being close to the ocean? And what don't you like? And they tell us that, and once that happens, then we can present that kind of information back to you. And that's about where we're at. We're looking at a second outreach probably at the beginning of April, around the beginning of April. So you may be seeing some output, some activities from us to the citizens coming back to you. So I just wanted to bring you up to date to that and answer any questions if you might have some.
Good. Doc, thank you. Committee members, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're good. All right. So on we are to topic N, which is updates on the aviation noise and health issues. And for that presentation, we have Bill Vadino. And again, this is for information only.
You have a public comment to read?
We do have a public comment to read, right? Yes, yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you for that reminder, Bill.
Oh, of course.
This is a public comment from Bernadine Lund, who was unable to attend this evening. She sent it via email. I would like to comment on item N, updates on aviation noise and health issues. In the LUTC minutes, the second paragraph has the following statement. The next step is that the cities of Berrien, Des Moines, and Federal Way will consider Port of Seattle responses to the issues/concerns addressed above and determined if they will return to START. This is in reference to the January 29th, 2020 meeting notes from a meeting with SeaTac Airport and cities that were in START. One of the primary reasons for leaving START is the port declining to have recordings of the START meetings. Until the port agrees to recording the START meetings, it is unreasonable to resume participation in the START meetings. Having recordings would give the cities and citizens assurance that the port is open to working with the cities. If the logistics are difficult because of different locations, an audio recording without the video would be sufficient. Everyone knows that meetings can be uncomfortable and contentious, but that is no reason to not record the process. Rather, the recording can show how issues are resolved and let cities and citizens know how specific issues were handled and how decisions came about. Even Federal Way now has recordings of the LUTC meetings, which are very useful, not to suggest they are uncomfortable or contentious.
All right, Bernadine, thank you, if you're watching. Bill, why don't you go
Chair
ahead and
Copain,
proceed.
Council President, I got it right. Members of the council, I'm Bill Vadino, Policy Advisor. And we're going to talk about aviation issues. Then after, I think, then we'll have the other presentation. So first, the aircraft noise update. And briefly, just so you know, with the federal issues, the lobbying is in process with the letters that you signed as a council, and which, Councilmember Kochmar was very, very aware of, because she's been working on this issue for many, many years. And as Chair Kopang knows, there's also an offer through Adam Smith's office, who's not only facilitating the letters along with the port, to also have what we've known as the FAA ombudsperson or community officer come up and visit this committee. And so that's going to get scheduled, and then we can sort of pre-block in advance a lot of the issues and the historical issues going back many, many years to talk to this FAA ombudsman community engagement officer. So that's good news. Second, at the legislature, Mike Pellicciotti's House bill has passed expanding the coverage for noise packages to Federal Way. That's in the Senate. So if you're talking to, Senator Wilson, all the other senators that we know, we've got maybe, I think the clock's running down on something like 10 or 12 days to try to get that passed too. Yeah. What's not on there right now is the fact that also Representative Tina Orwell also has the bill there, and I before I walked in, I didn't check the status, but there was the bill to try to fix the packages that did not work. Yeah. And once they didn't work, there was no warranty because the contractors were gone. I believe that's looking good, at least in the House. And so that's something I'll get you updated if we're going to lobby for both.
Bill, just to interrupt for a second.
Yes, please.
Representative Pellicciotti's bill does not mandate packages being done in Federal Way.
It makes us eligible.
Possible.
Yeah, it makes them possible and eligible. It's one step of many.
Yeah.
As we talked about. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification.
Well, I just wanted to make the public hear something, and I hear it, and I just wanted to clarify that.
It's one of many steps.
Yeah.
So it's probably based on decibel level, and they have a.
Oh, of course. No,
Yeah.
as far as the clarification as to, or the qualifications, yes, that's, but as far as just being, there's mandated, federally mandated areas that have had those packages, and we are outside of that federally mandated area, and the CTAC has not been legally able to provide impact funding for in Federal Way. So this would allow it.
So when we're talking about packages, we're talking about soundproofing, windows, insulation.
Pane windows, additional.
Schools.
Yeah, for schools, but additional insulation, yep.
Yeah, and after it's recognized by the state, then there's a few more hoops to go through.
Yeah.
This is an important landmark piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, of course, maybe next meeting, we'll talk more about what the airport committee that's looking at a second site is evaluating. So you get more detail on that and the hopefulness of that. Another piece is last month, the release of the EIS, the Environmental Impact Statement for the Seattle Area Master Plan, has been now postponed to May 2020. Originally, it was going to be last fall. So they are still drilling down on that data. And Dave Berger put together, one of our citizens, a really nice analysis, and he's continuing to look at that. And I'm hopeful to share that at the next meeting, so you know all the components. But he's been studying that for us.
May 2020 or 2021?
2021.
Okay.
May 2021. Okay. So when it was going to be last fall.
Okay.
So, and then of course, the Highline Forum will be meeting here, and there's a possibility of a new chair who's considering it. Who might be in this room? Who's smiling? So anyway, that would be great news. Now, for the main event is the update of start status. And as you know, so any questions about those 4 items? They're a little bit more truncated than usual. But. Okay, so last summer, we joined Burien and Des Moines in basically suspending from start. Our involvement was standing shoulder to shoulder, side by side with these other 2 cities that had studied this issue and had grave reservations. And so we stood by our 3 partner cities. And so it took a while. We wrote our letter from this council. It took a while to get a meeting of electeds, which happened in December. And in January, basically what was put on the table by the 2 airport committees of Des Moines and Burien, our points were involved as well too. John Reesing was at that meeting, so contributed for Federal Way. As you see in your packets, there were all these issues that needed to be looked at. And so here are the responses. Now keep in mind, the agenda of the meeting was well, I was going to go around the room and what do cities want, and, how do you feel, and everything. It was a nice agenda. Lance is a great guy, Lance Little, the airport manager. But basically, our former police chief, former chief of staff, who's now the city manager of Burien, he just said, let's just march through the list. And so we went straight to the list, which is what we're going to do now. So the first issue was the city's asking to suspend design work until the SAMP environmental reviews are completed. And basically the response was, after what, it's been 6 months, it's gone on too long. If there's a challenge, we'll have to redo pieces of it, but it's basically too far gone to stop that. So that was a no. The second issue was there are outstanding requests from other cities that the port hasn't responded to, and the answer was that they will respond to any outstanding questions that come up. Please let us know what we haven't been responsive about, and not only will we be responsive to them, we will be responsive from now on. So I will double check with our citizens to see what is out there, but this wasn't something that was in the consul's and mayor's letter from Federal Way. And then there was, let's have electeds more involved in this, because right now it's, people like, it's citizens, and it's great to have those folks there, and they've been absolutely essential, as you can tell from Bernadine's knowledge, Dave Berger's knowledge, John Reesing's knowledge. But having electeds might give, more gravitas to the situation. So the discussion was, let's keep START citizen-based, but have their recommendations flow directly into the Highline Forum, which has electeds. And then the Highline Forum then basically lets the Port Commission know what's going on. So that seemed like a nice way to do it. One idea from the mayor was to basically make the Highline Forum START and have the two subcommittees report through Highline Forum. But basically the port's saying there's so much going on with the Highline Forum, and those of you who have attended have seen there's lots of other issues. You've got the school districts there, the colleges there, that having them connect is better than trying to truncate and connect the issues. So that's what that issue is all about right there. New facilitation, and that was agreed to, and both the cities and the port would basically hire and own the facilitator. So then everything could be a collaboration. The next issue was what Bernadine was talking about, which was the audio-visual recording of meetings. And that's a very important item to many people, especially at the other two cities, as it is to others in Federal Way. And so what the port recommended is, what if we make sure there are comprehensive minutes, they're done, everybody looks at them, and they make sure within a week, this is what I agreed to. This is every single item, this is every single issue. And then it would then be, after it was rewritten, then approved by START. So that was the compromise, because there is a sensitivity which we can go into further as we take the next 30 days or more to look into this, but we can go into more depth. But the port was uncomfortable with recordings. And so this is what the group sort of came up with to at least keep the topic going. So we can talk about that during the question and answer period. Next is to co-equally set the agendas, identify speakers, and make sure there's a diverse perspective of experts on both sides. So then those who say, wait, I've got an expert, the World Health Organization, for instance, or there's other people who look at this challenge versus what is necessarily at this point FAA or federal approved. So now agendas and speakers will be done together versus just done by the ports. So there was agreement on that. Next, advanced meeting materials, get them in advance, much like you do as consul, so people could look at them, examine them, study them, and ask questions versus seeing them for the first time. So that was agreed to. The next piece was all messaging would be together. So there was a concern by some cities that this is just being used as a public relations piece for the port, allegedly. But with this, basically the cities and the port would agree, okay, this is what we're going to tell the people we're working on together. And that would be done by something the port asked for at the end, which was, let's have a steering committee. So basically, people from the cities and people from the port can work together and then get the final recommendation for these to the START as a whole. And then, let's see. And then there was this piece of wasn't the intent of START to address growth and growth of airport operations? And basically the response from the port is, you know, the SeaTac Airport Master Plan process is where that happens. And that START is a sort of its entity focusing on certain issues. So, but these are some things we can get into more detail. As I sense, this is something we'll look at for the next 30 days. Listen to our citizens, drill down, and then come up with maybe a recommendation at the next LUTC meeting. The other piece was START not being a vehicle to evidence engagement, and that was agreed to. So now it'll be co-promoted of what we're doing together to work on these challenges. And then there was a concern over participation of all stakeholders, not a vehicle to evidence engagement, and then of course, so basically member cities will make sure that they're part of this situation and that there is participation and engagement. And then the port had some recommendations which are folded into what you've seen already. Let's establish a steering committee so we can work out everything and basically manage this situation. Strengthen behavior, expectations on both sides. And then it was asked for cities to take ownership of their community representatives. So you can read between the lines on that one, and we can discuss that if needed. So basically what's going to happen next is this has come to you. You are our airport committee. It's going to the other two airport committees, and then we'll see what they think. And since we are shoulder to shoulder with our cities, I think we'll be informed at the next LUTC meeting by how these other two airport committees are reacting, as well as our citizens. And then LUTC can recommend or not recommend to the council some version or no version of re-engaging with START. So, but now we've got a dialogue. I've sent this out to some of our stakeholders, members of START, and we'll see what they have to say as well too. Okay. So there we are.
Very good. Bill, thank you for that presentation.
Discussion or questions?
Yes. Councilmember Moore.
Yeah, it's just a comment, Bill. I just want to say thank you for putting this together. I appreciate the details in here. I think it helps me kind of stay, obviously, up to date as to what's going on. So I just wanted to say thank you, and a lot of helpful information in here, so thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Council President?
So how are we or you going to listen to our citizens? Is it from?
I will, I've already sent out emails to Dave, and I'll call Dave Berger, and I'll call John Reesing, let him know about this. They're all pretty much engaged. They saw these minutes through the other committees before you saw them. I had to make sure you saw them first and the council before I sent them out. But I'm sure they've been sitting with them for at least a few days. And so I will just openly let them know, and then anybody else we've identified. As you know, when we did the study for the Department of Commerce, we've got a list of people that were interviewed, and so I'm going to engage them too and get their comments. Former council members, mayors, everybody that we all co-interviewed with. That's my sort of identified feeder to you, the LUTC, and the airport committee. And then, of course, those watching this broadcast, please let us know what you think, either just emails, public comment, but emails will get to us quicker, I think, so.
Should we put something on our Facebook page, the council Facebook page?
Yeah, certainly.
Absolutely.
We can say the LUTC discussed this, and we'd like your feedback, and here's the video. How's that sound?
We could do that, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Could you work with Jerry Lynn tomorrow, or when you have time to do that?
Oh, sure, and we'll put it on the other page too, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
And my page too. And your page too. We all have our constituents.
And my other question is, excuse me, if we had, excuse me, a federal lobbyist, would that help us with the airport issues?
Oh, definitely.
We haven't had one for a number of years.
Yeah, and we're working on that.
Okay.
Right, Representative Kochmar? Right. So we're working on that. Yes.
Good.
Thumbs up. Yep.
All right. Hope that is worked through soon.
I said Monday, but I didn't say which Monday, did I? No, I meant I meant today.
All
And
right.
Monday is past, but it was mentioned. Got to work on that. Yes, we do.
Okay. Awesome.
And no, there's been some work done on that.
Very good.
how it can be done, that kind of thing. So we
Okay.
just have to solidify it. Thank you for that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, actually, Council President Honda, that's a good question, and I know that Councilor Coachmar has been advocating for this, but just for the sake of sharing with the public and those that are watching, can you go into how that's going to help us if we have a federal lobbyist? I mean, obviously, there are challenges, but I know we're slowly making progress, but how will the federal?
Well, what's great about a federal lobbyist is they'll get into certain key offices and they'll say, well, I'm here for this, I'm here for, athletic fields, but oh, by the way, you're also on the airport committee and we've submitted these 2 letters to you and just wanted to get an update on that. We're very, very concerned because of X, Y, Z. And so what's great about a federal lobbyist, they've got all these contacts. And so they'll be multitasking. And so this will be added to the multitasking of the lobbyist.
Councilmember Coachmar.
Oh, yeah, the way it works is, so Senator Cantwell's staff explained this to me probably about 10 years ago. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. So when you have 2 senators in this entire state, and you have all of the cities all over the state, the ones that are heard are the ones who are at the table, and the ones that who are most vocal. And so what you do is you put in your legislative agenda. The lobbyist will carry that forward to get it in, just like we do in the state. And then every month, they will follow it through committee up to completion, and they'll go in. The staff are the ones who do all the work. And so they'll have a relationship with staff, which usually a lobbyist already does, and then they'll follow it through, and then they, just as Bill said, they will talk about other issues at the same time. And then we will send letters every month. Gee, don't forget us, City of Federway is looking for this kind of money for this project. And that's how you get it through to completion so that we get the money that we need. That's how Mike Park and I, Councilmember Park and I, when we went to DC, when they used to have earmarks, that's how we got $12 million for the city, and that was the seed money for the Costco interchange project. We still have to finish the other part of that $120 million project, which is probably much more now. But so that was the seed money we took to the state to get the money from the state to get that project going. And so that's what I'm hoping we can do with some projects here. And while we were at it, we were so proud that we got $12 million when we found out that Redmond got $120 million, or some of nature of that.
Yeah.
And that's why I felt we were getting the shaft.
And I believe there's a lot of value in having a federal lobbyist and whatnot. I just want to make sure that our expectation is with the results of having a federal lobbyist that moves this issue forward, that yields us with results. Yeah. And I know that things have been moving slowly, so what is the added value for the lobbyist with this issue? I think to my colleague, to Councilor Coachmar, I completely agree. I think there's a lot of value in having a lobbyist to get us funding. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Council President, you have something else?
Yes, I do. One of the things that I would like to see in our next budget is our membership in NLC, National League of Cities, which we've tried to do now for a number of years, but haven't had the funding to do it. And one of the reasons is Peter Kwan, who's the deputy mayor at the city of SeaTac, is on the NLC's committee for airport issues and has been quite our representative there. But we're missing out by not, next week's a big League of Cities meeting in Washington, D.C., and we do miss out on not going to those things because we're not a member.
Good.
Noted.
Yes, silence is not golden when it comes to getting federal money.
You're either at the table or you're on the menu.
Well, you don't ask, you're not going to get it, for sure. That's guaranteed. Okay, next topic of conversation is topic O, which is panhandling in Federal Way. And I think prior to your presentation, I'd like to open the floor for any public comment. Do we have some members of the community that want to? Yes. Anna? No, please, fill a pink form. I think Ken, yeah. Go ahead and fill out the pink slip, and then you can fill out. Ken, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Hello, thank you. I don't have anything prepared for this, but
all right.
obviously it's, you don't really have to. You just have to drive in Federal Way and be around and live here as a citizen and notice that there's an issue. I have a problem with our city just allowing people to break laws. I'm not sure that that is panhandling itself is a law being broken. But I don't know why we don't, as a council, make something out there that makes it more difficult for them if it's something that's bad for the citizens or bad for us. Someone on the side of the street asking for money or something like that. If you're driving along, people stop, they give money, people are running into them, rear-ending. It's not a good thing. I think that's something that, the reason why they shouldn't be there. They leave garbage everywhere. That's not good. They're in the middle of right-of-ways. On 348th and right near Costco. They're just sitting right in the middle. I don't know how that's even possible to be able to do that legally. And I don't know, I'm wondering if the council can do something and creating something from the city's standpoint as opposed to maybe a state law or something to that effect that can actually stop that from happening. Maybe be more creative, and what they do in Kelowna, BC is they put like a bunch of flowers there so they can't be there. It's beautiful for everybody to be able to drive by, but it also keeps people from actually going in the middle there and actually, you know, causing other people that are driving get hurt, or even themselves. So, and it's not garbage, and that's a good thing. So I'm just basically asking you guys to, the city leaders, to do something creative to help on that. We all as citizens deserve better than this. I think we also, I think most people know that these people are out there, not all of them, and I know everybody wants to say, not all homeless people are panhandlers, not all panhandlers are bad people. We're not talking about the few people, because I think we should be also out there helping people that do want to be helped, right? But a lot of them are getting money to buy drugs, to buy alcohol, to do bad things for themselves, which is also causing problems for the rest of the community as well. Yeah, it's good that they're not out there stealing things to sell it to buy their drugs, but they're also doing that too. And just from people that I know, employees of mine that are young kids in the city or have been young kids in the city, and they get out and about, they've let me know that there's, you know, just homeless gangs out there that are, you know, kind of controlling the situation, the drug trade, and that works in with the panhandling and stuff like that. They have their guys go out and they panhandle and they bring the money back and they all buy drugs and so on. So it doesn't help our community for sure. A lot of this stuff is happening near our schools. It's happening right in front of our face, and seems like we have nothing better to do. And I don't know how we can have like a city attorney or somebody out there just, you know, being creative and finding out ways to actually be proactive on this and not just say, we can't do this, we can't do that. They have the right to this, they have the right to do that. What about our rights as citizens? Why don't we have rights to actually have better safety? Why can't our community be more beautiful for people to see? I don't want to be felony way. I'm born and raised here my whole life. I'm 48 years old almost, and we deserve better than that. And I hope you guys all think that too. So
Could you please tell us your name?
Ken Blevins.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Next is Anna Patrick.
Evening, Council, and, okay, what is it, President, Council President?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and public. So, I'm here to talk about panhandling. You know, I knew that was on the topic, so I think you guys all pretty much know where we come from on this topic. If you look at the social media, most of us are pretty fed up and want something done about it, and we understand that there's the freedom of speech laws, and so we're limited with what we can do, but there's got to be a creative way that we can address it. So I'm hoping that we can either put up some signs, sort of bringing awareness to other options for people to help. We have a lot of people that are compassionate in the community that really want to reach out to the homeless, and there's just a better way to do it that's not sort of leading people down the wrong path. We want to lead people down the right path and getting them off the streets. And there's a lot of scammers that are making a ton of money on this. And not only that, but they're sort of blighting our community by just lounging around, and sometimes children are out there with them, and it's inhumane. And so a lot of us are really concerned about that. And the other thing is, sometimes I see panhandlers right in the middle, like on an island when you're pulling into a parking lot, and it's really a hazard. And I'm surprised that the city can't do more to address some of those road hazards, people that are gonna get run over by the corner of a truck pulling into the lot. And so at the very least, we should be addressing that. And maybe even considering doing a campaign. The city can campaign with social media, bringing awareness to other options besides just handing out money, ways that we can help that's more proactive. So even if we're not considering a signage, just public campaigning to sort of bring awareness to the other options for how we can help. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Okay, thanks.
Ken and Anna, thank you for your comments. The genesis of this discussion really was born out of the comments that Councilmember Moore and myself in particular observed. And as the chair of Land Use and Transportation, I thought it was a good venue for us to have a further discussion. This really is designed to be a community discussion as well as a council discussion. And I think your input's very important. There are some things that we've done or that we're doing, I think, that address some of the concerns that you have. I think one of them, but they're in process. The first one is the pedestrian interference ordinance that was just passed, which will address the issue of pedestrians being located in center medians, in places of traffic where they can be negatively impacted by a vehicle. So that's not going to be legal anymore. They're also aggressive panhandling is long been on our books as an issue that needs to be addressed. We don't want our citizens to be accosted in an aggressive way by panhandlers. So while there is a free speech issue, I think that Councilmember Moore and I in particular, but I know there's other council members as well, we're concerned that just sitting on our hands and not doing anything is not the answer. So signs are not going to solve the problem. Social media on its own is not going to solve the problem or address the issue. I think it's going to be a comprehensive approach that has many facets to it that's going to be best. And I think that's really what we're looking at right now is what does that look like? And if the council as a whole, if the committee decides to move something forward, then it will become for the council, and then the council as a whole will need to make a decision on whether they want to support a proposed suggestion or a recommendation from this committee or come up with an alternative. And again, I think that it's very important for the community to get engaged. And one of the ways to get engaged is coming here. So thank you for that. Going to council meetings is very important as well. But emailing the council members as well can be a very effective way to get the word out. I think that the council needs to understand the priority. We've got vocal people, and it's good. Thank you for raising this issue on social media and expressing your concern. And again, I think that we have a lot of frustration. What we don't want to do is we don't want to replace basically compassion with a lack of solutions and just say no. We need to have an alternative. So that's really what we're proposing in this process. So anyway, I appreciate your comments. Bill, if you would like to begin.
And anticipating that we would have members of the public here, and they're always watching on TV, I put together a little review. Didn't get as far as I wanted to with some of the research this week, but we do have a meeting probably later this week and next week with at least one of the key cities. But as a review and update, we've been talking about reframing the discussion. So how do we shift street corner donations to have them go to nonprofits? And how do we educate potential donors to donate to nonprofits as an alternative? So, and these are the cities we've been researching. We talked last time extensively about what Lakewood is doing. And we had some information on Walla Walla actually giving signs, or actually telling them where to buy signs for private property without doing city signs. And of course, Lakewood is a combination of not only signage, but also their ordinances, which are different from ours, how they contact the people who are there by the side of the road, and then their social media campaign, which we shared examples of with before. So we've been talking about, and I've modified these a little bit, these are the initiatives that are still in front of you. The first one was the $10,000 initiative, where you would put 20 signs at key intersections and then observe what happens. And then there was an initiative AA, where you would try one intersection or two intersections with 4 signs and basically see what's the response from the signage. And keep a note that, as you've known before, the mayor does not recommend a signage solution. So I just put that there. And then, of course, as Chair Kopang spoke about before, there are different ways of doing the signage. There's the first sign on the left, which more or less implies you can't panhandle, where it really says, please don't give money to panhandlers. So to a degree, it's not quite, it's a message that I think is confusing. The middle one and the one on the right basically is part of that education program that you've spoken about as a LUTC and council members, as well as the members of the audience. How do we change the attitude so that people don't give to those on the corners, but give them to charities that will help those on the corners? Because sometimes the people on the corners actually really do have a need, and then there's some of the others that don't necessarily. So we've talked about those examples. And then, of course, these again are the signage locations, but as you've talked about before, there's many, many more places where it happens as people will move around.
But those are the highest concentrations.
Yeah, that's basically
of activity.
Correct. The second initiative B was what we've been learning from Lakewood, we'll learn from Bellevue, is how do you utilize press and social media. And when we meet with Bellevue this week or next week, they've got the advantage where a lot of people are, because of they're just such a digital city, are engaged, watch the presentations, and they'll promote saying, our study session is going to be about the charities that are going to step forward that you can donate to. And then people will go out to their neighborhoods and talk about the same thing. So we're going to learn about, it's not only just a Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram post, it's a coordinated effort to utilize YouTube and utilize public meetings and utilize the organizations to say, HopeLink is here. All these other organizations are here to help. This is where you should direct your money. And then, of course, the law enforcement officers, much like here in Federal Way and Lakewood, they will let those people know who are out there on the streets, by the way, here's some options for you to take advantage of in a very positive way. And I wanted to share, as I was talking to the council president this afternoon, we all saw this before. This is what they hand out in Lakewood. And by the way, this is really put out as a referral guide for community resources for older adults, but they use this. They don't necessarily yet have something that's customized to those of many, many different needs. And well, Council President, you had an idea this afternoon about what to do with handing out.
Yes.
So you want to speak to that for a moment?
I do. I received a phone call from a council member, Yolanda Trout, in Auburn today, and they have quite a significant problem with panhandling in Auburn, as do most cities around us. They had the state come in and put signs up on 15th and 18th, the exits off of the state highway, that you're not supposed to be there. The local police can't enforce those, only the state patrol, so therefore they're not necessarily being enforced, and they haven't helped move anyone along. People are still there. But, you know, in talking to her, and she's reached out to some other cities as to what they're doing, I called, or I sent an email to Bill and to the mayor saying that maybe we should have a county-wide education effort and go to the King County Council, because this is not just Federal Way, it's not just Auburn, it's cities up and down I-5 and throughout King County, and see what King County can do to help us, because we don't have the money to necessarily do that. King County does, and if we can get other cities involved, I think it will have a bigger message.
It's all there. Then the next initiative that I'm still researching is what cities with nonprofits where they really are taking in money. And you've seen the parking meter in Spokane, and there's other places. So to drill down on that to see if we wanted to put together something like that or have them do that. But it could be very difficult. It might be better just to do what Bellevue is proposing, which is you just educate and then people self-select. Much like when they're on a street corner and they see somebody. Sometimes they give to charities, but sometimes they're compelled to give to someone who, maybe in their estimation really need. The next initiative we talked about was keeping an eye on other cities. And of course, we're going to continue to talk to other cities. And if you've got any suggestions, but these are the ones we're drilling down with at this moment. And then, of course, as the council president talked about, there are these materials from other cities. And this one does not quite fit all, but maybe we or the county develop something that we can actually give them, and we can take a look to see what we're doing. You look at the materials again of what we hand out to people on street corners, because we do that, and then figure out what we do as far as, well, for instance, you've already referred to Chair Kopang. I believe it's the second reading tomorrow night on the pedestrian interference, and there'll be an extensive discussion about that tomorrow night among you all, and that'll be the time and place to talk about that and how that influences all these issues. But what is handed out and how our compassionate people contact these people on the corners, that's a very important factor in this as well too. So with that, we're continuing to research. I'm going to have more time devoted next month to moving forward to this, but are there any suggestions at this point of other cities you've heard of or other strategies? But as we discussed last time, it's a multifaceted approach of, what are our ordinances? How do we enforce the ordinances? How do we inform the public?
Yeah.
How do we inform those who are on the street corners? How do we sort of have a balanced approach to effectively have the money go to the right places?
I'm concerned with the ordinance, and not that I don't like it, but I'm concerned with the enforcement of it. And I think it'll be frustrating to our citizens because a police officer actually has to see someone interfering with traffic before they'll be cited. It won't be a citizen calling up saying someone 99 and 320th is in the street. They actually have to see it, and I think that's going to be frustrating. So we will need to do a lot of education for our public so that they understand the ordinance and why it is the reason it is.
I think there's nothing new there as far as the fact that citizens can report activity, but unless they do a citizen arrest, which we're not doing much of anymore. It's always been that the police have to see it. But I do think that this particular ordinance will address the issues of people being in medians and being in areas of traffic, camping out and panhandling. So that will give the police legal means to ask people to move along, which is a good thing, I think, and I think both for them and for the city. Council Member Asefa Dawson?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the presentation.
Welcome.
And thank you, Council Chair. I think Council President Honda stated what I was thinking, because I think it gives our public false security, thinking that it could be enforced when the ordinance says that they have to be seen by the police officers for them to act on it. So I think education is very important. Otherwise, people are going to not understand why nothing is being done. And so that's one concern. My other concern about contribute to a charity is the fact that we're making an assumption that I read that when I have a chance, go to my computer and make a donation. And we're putting, I believe we need to talk to those agencies because we're putting undue expectation on them, because my $20 today is not going to be a continuous $20 to the agency. So how are we holding them responsible to take care of the panhandlers who are trying to get a quick $5, $10 here. So what is our relationship with those agencies that we are saying, go donate to this for panhandling? Or how is that gonna work? And I don't know if we've had the conversation, but I think we should.
Yeah.
If this is the expectation that we are shifting, or we're trying to get the donors to give to the agencies. My other point is, yes, panhandling is gonna be wrong, and police could if they see them, they could stop the panhandler from being there or whatever. But I think if we really wanna make an impact, the driver should also not be cited, but at least have a conversation with them too. Educate the drivers as well as, well, I don't know how you educate the panhandlers unless they're really paying attention to what's going on. So these are my concerns, and especially with the nonprofits, how we get to communicate with them. And then the where to turn, actually, it's, King County also has that through Crisis Clinic. And so personalizing it might work, I don't know, but it's the same production that happens with any of the 211 lines. So I like that idea also, but who are we handing those off to? The
I think,
people who are panhandling?
Bill, before you respond, oh, go ahead, as far as handing off the forms?
The where to turn that you just showed us the sample of?
Yeah.
We don't actually have that form yet.
We don't, but
different-
No, but I believe,
if we get 'em.
we have something that we give
Yes,
to, we do have something which we'll share with you at some point.
That's the one the police
Yeah,
officers
think-
give out? Is that what
This
you're
is
talking
like-
about?
yes.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
liquids.
Now, Councilmember Sefa Dawson, I think the questions that you're asking are actually not for Bill. He's supporting us in our discussion. This is a discussion for us. So I know you were addressing those to Bill. Really, this is a question, this is for
Okay.
us to have a discussion on. So, I mean, obviously, as Bill stated in his notes, the mayor is not supporting this at this point. So the fact that the mayor has basically said to Bill, support the council, when he is an advisor to the mayor, lets me know that he's at least giving the council the support it needs, because Bill is a great advocate for, or a great resource for getting the research done. But from the beginning, this has been a council-driven process.
Right.
So it's
So
not
who-
coming from the mayor's. So
Okay.
as
So
the
how
chair
did you
of-
want me
As the
to-
chair of land use, I'm facilitating this discussion.
Okay.
And I think the points that you've made, please email those to me.
Okay.
I think Deputy Mayor Honda, you're talking about the fact that we need to be more regional in our approach. I agree. I also think that as a city, we can lead the way. And I think for us to wait to push this off on the council, the King County Council, and say, we need the solution here for the council, for the county, and have it bogged down for another 6 months to 5 years or 10 years or forever. I don't think we want to do that necessarily either. So I think that's part of the discussion as well. How do we create a regional approach to this while still having some leadership in how we address the issues that our citizens are coming to us about? So I think that's what this discussion is about. So obviously the floor is open. Councilmember Safadas, you still had your mic on. Is there anything?
Yeah, I mean, we've always talked to the presenter, so if I did that wrong, I apologize. I don't know.
I just wanted to remove the preconception here. The presenter is actually just facilitating our discussion.
Right.
But he's
Okay.
not the policy maker. This is a little bit different, and that's why it's information only. We are the policy makers. We need to have the discussion on that. So that was not intended
Okay.
as correction as much as just saying, this is our discussion, not his.
Yeah.
So.
And as a note, part of our research is to figure out how these nonprofits work with, how they make it work with the donations. And that's something you've asked me to do, and that will happen.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. And I think that really is a great point, is we have to have some infrastructure in place. We can't just drop this off. We can't just put a text-to-give number up there and then say, okay, hope it works. We need to have a coordinated response. So I think what you're talking about is some very important issues that will help us flesh out whatever response we come up with to address this issue. So, Council President Honda.
Thank you, Councilmember Kopang. I certainly don't think it would take 5 to 10 years to get something out of the King County Council. I do believe that the more cities that are involved in getting the message out to panhandlers that it is not welcome in King County, the better all of our cities will be. And if that's working through King County Council or SCA, which all have strong voices in the region, it would be very helpful to us.
I don't disagree with you.
And so, certainly we can be the leaders in it, but I feel that the more we can get, as the cities are coming together, all realizing that these folks are moving from around the area.
Yep.
They don't necessarily belong in one city or another city, residents of our city,
Yes.
or homeless in our city. And we can share notes with other cities as to who they're seeing, when they're seeing, if they're being dropped off by someone in a van, which we've heard of.
Sure.
I've never seen it. And there's more power if we're working with other folks. I'd also like to know if Bill can work on where the funding would come from, because $10,000, we would need to know where the funding would come from.
Sure. And I guess, I think, I want to make sure it's very clear to the community as a whole. I fully support the fact that this is a regional issue that needs a regional response. I think that there are things that we can do as a city that can be specific to our city and demonstrate a direct connection between the council and its constituents. My concern when we talk about sending something up to the council, the King County Council, is that we are in some way abdicating action on our part as a council to moving this forward. So when I said 5 to 10 years, it was actually a kind of an exaggeration to make the point that without accountability and without a direct connection to our community, we don't necessarily know if it would have the level of urgency that I believe is being demonstrated or is warranted based on the response within the community. So again, this is a regional issue. It should have a regional response. But I think that as a council, it's very important for us to be responsive to our citizens directly and be a part of the solution as a whole, or the addressing the issue as a whole, but that we're responsive to the citizens. And I don't want to send a message as the council, as the committee chair. My message is not, okay, let's just throw it up to the council and see what they do, the county council. No, we need to take action.
That's certainly not what I was intending, Councilmember Kopang. First of all, I will say I don't think the signs are going to do a heck of a lot except move panhandlers from where the signs are located to private property. And then we have an issue with private property owners having more panhandlers on their property than having an issue. So I'm very concerned about how that would work. So perhaps we put the signs up. Perhaps people move on, they go to another city, they move around in Federal Way. Hopefully with the new ordinance that we have, hopefully our police officers will see what's going on and will be there and will be able to cite a person who is stepping into the roadway and interfering with traffic and taking money or taking food or whatever it is that the person in the car is handing them. That's why we have requested that, and that's why we all agreed to it and passed it. Mm-hmm. But we don't know that that will happen either, and we don't know that that will stop people. Yeah. So there isn't an easy solution to this. No. And the signs may or may not work. What Lakewood does, we're not going to do. We're not going to cite them and then put them in jail if they're panhandling. That I didn't see anyone on council who agreed to that. So I do think...
Just as a minor correction, though, Lakewood is not arresting people for panhandling.
No, it's for their breaking the ordinance.
Yes. Yes. With ordinance, which is pedestrian interference.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because we can't arrest anyone for panhandling.
Right.
It is for the interference with traffic. But I still wouldn't want to put someone in jail for doing that. I don't think that's a wise use of our tax dollars. So I don't see an easy answer to this. I don't think putting signs up is an easy answer because I'm not sure that they're going to be as helpful as some people think they are. But we'll see what happens. And as the weather gets warmer, we will probably see more panhandlers because that's the cycle. And hopefully we will have some help from our police department.
Councilmember Moore?
Thank you, Chair Copain, and thank you for the public for coming out and being engaged in this issue. Gosh, where does one begin with this? There's a lot of thoughts that are going through my head. But we'll first begin by saying that I truly love Federal Way, and I think we all love Federal Way. And I think we're all passionate about what this community is about and the beautiful things that it offers and how great this place is that we call home. And we all want what's best for the community. I know that a month ago or 2 months ago, we recognized that panhandling is indeed a problem. And I know that as a kid and growing up in Federal Way, it is indeed a fact that this has gotten worse. We've seen more panhandlers all around Federal Way popping up in new places. Ken is exactly right that we see them in the most concerning places. And just to address one of your thoughts, and I know that EJ could speak to this at some point, whenever that is, but I know that on 348th and Enchanted Parkway, we're going to be adding a new sign right in that middle median. And so I've often seen panhandlers there, and so we are indeed working to create and to be creative, to put a signage and some rocks or whatnot. Am I describing this right, EJ?
Yeah, so that is going to LTAC, I believe,
Right.
later this month, and it'll be before
For final approval?
Well, for bid award, assuming it's out for bid right now, so
Okay.
assuming we will get bids,
Yeah.
and then go from there when we see what the pricing is, and then it should be before LUTC next month.
Yeah.
For potential bid award. You are correct that we've been looking at designs that would enhance that center median, keeping in mind that's a couple different phased conversations. First and foremost, safety of the traveling public, be that on car or on foot. So we can't be necessarily putting large boulders in the median that would become an obstacle for a car. But yeah, we've been trying to identify tactile surfaces that would basically discourage people from standing in front of a sign. So similar to what we've done in other places, not necessarily directly related to this conversation as much as a recognition that the city is making an investment in a sign for messaging, and we want the messaging to be visible, not to have people standing in front of the messaging that the city is trying to share. So it's more that purpose, which I guess depending on how you want to look at it, may or may not have a tangential benefit or detriment to this conversation. But it's really more of a means to discourage people from standing in front of a sign that the city's trying to use for messaging more than to directly relate to this conversation.
So I think there's creativity like that we're working on. And certainly I can assume that we're going to look into other opportunities of that nature. But, we've seen panhandling get worse. And I really want to thank Chair Copain's leadership on this because I hear people's concern. And when you hear people's concern, it is my belief, my personal belief, that you bring that concern into this council chamber and fight for it and advocate for it and walk it towards a solution. This has been a problem 10 plus years. And I appreciate Councilmember Asafa Dawson's questions and perspectives and thoughts. I appreciate Council President Honda's perspectives, but I don't want us to walk towards, well, let's push the can down the road and not do anything about it. And so my thing is, and my request for the next steps is that we continue to discuss it and continue to have it on this committee. And let's actually roll up our sleeves. Let's come up with some further answers to questions, and let's bring it forth in this committee. And let's walk towards a solution, because it is a problem. And people are saying that it's a problem. And when I drive guests, tourism, businesses, when I drive people around, it does indeed have a negative outlook on our community. We have to agree on that. And the answer really shouldn't be, it's all right, we'll just let it be. That should not be the answer. And so I applaud the chairman's leadership on this. Again, I respect the discussions. I may disagree with some of the things that are being said, but I respect it. And I think, honestly, part of my response right now is, okay, so those are the concerns. Let's actually address it. Let's make next month's meeting, let's come up with some of the answers. Let's strategize towards getting to a yes, instead of discussing this to driving ourselves to a, no, this is not a good idea, let's just have someone else address it.
We're allowed to do that, though. We're allowed to say no if we decide it's not a good idea. And as a council, we may decide to do that.
That's just my perspective, my opinion. And here's the thing, and that's, I am, at the end of the day, I'm proud of what we're doing here, because this is being driven by the city council.
Absolutely.
This is,
I'm
last
sorry.
sentence, thank you.
I
So
didn't mean to
this,
cut you off.
thank you. This is being driven by us. And I do have to give a small little shout out to the mayor's office for lending his staff to support us in this effort. So thank you for that. But let's continue to drive this, and let's get to an agreement. Let's get to a yes. And for me personally, I am advocating for, let's work to get to a yes overall, and give the community a response by saying, we hear you. So we acted, we worked, we compromised, we strategized, and we got to a yes. That's my plea for the committee and for the council members that are here. Thank you.
Councilmember Kochmar.
Well, thank you. I'm fine with continuing to discuss this. What I want to remind us is that what we're really dealing with is an addiction problem.
Yes.
That's really what's fueling what's going on here, and that's what everybody is very upset about, because we're enabling these people. And I can say that from personal experience.
Sure,
with a member of my own family. So, but I'm fine with continuing to discuss this. But what I would like to do is just redirect a little bit. Do you mind if I just ask another question?
Sure, yeah,
That's okay.
definitely.
Well, Bill, and maybe EJ, I know that Ken was on Facebook today, and I think Anna was too, about 312th and First. We do read those. And, I mean, I'm not sure what's going on with that property. I'm not sure why it's not being redeveloped. It's been vacant for 40 years. I don't know why, because I know at one point we were talking about putting a drive-through Starbucks there. I'm not sure why it can't be redeveloped, but it is, I mean, there are rats. I saw them running across the road to the housing development across the street from that area. There's garbage in there, and I know that it's privately owned, but that fence certainly doesn't keep anybody out. I hope it's enough to trespass people who are in there, but we can't go in. We can't have our citizens go in and try to limb up the trees, or because it's owned by a private individual, but we can't let garbage sit there either, and we can't allow that to continue. What are we going to do about it? I'm very upset about it. It just can't continue. It's far worse in the corner of 320th and First. So maybe it's easier to get to. It's kind of a low-lying area. But I just would like you to take that back and have some kind of a discussion about it. And obviously, our citizens are upset.
Linda, thank you for expressing your concerns. That it is tangential, certainly, to our discussion, but I certainly see how it's related. I think Deputy, or I'm sorry, Council President, did you have something else?
I do.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to answer Councilmember Moore's statement that some people might not think this is a problem. Yes, panhandling is a problem. It's unattractive. It's not just, I don't know why you feel that we've all agreed that it's a problem and that something needs to be done. I would say that this might surprise some of you, but there are some of our citizens that don't want us to spend $10,000 on signs.
Sure.
I've heard from a number of folks who would rather that we would spend $10,000 on something to help the situation and not put the signs up. But I do have a question for Bill. The electronic signs that the mayor has been using to advertise the state of the city, could we use those to advertise our new ordinance and not give to panhandlers? Try to start the education process?
That certainly, I think.
I will double check, but
The
city
message-
announcements do go on there.
The message would have to be pretty brief because those signs, you're driving by them, but there's 4 of them. I've tried to use them before to advertise council things. I've been, it hasn't happened, but I think it might be a step in the education process if we could use those signs.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look into that, but get you an answer
Great
quicker than
idea.
next meeting. Okay,
Great
I'll
idea.
Get an answer.
Councilmember Stephen Dawson, do you still have something?
Whatever.
Council President already kind of touched on it, and it's in response to Councilmember Moore that this discussion has nothing to do with us not believing that there's a problem. It's just how we're going to address it. And if it's going to give false security to the public and the public doesn't see any change, then it's going to be back on us. So we have to we have to make sure that we are addressing it and addressing it to where it's effective. Otherwise, we can't just give false promises because if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and we can't just put it out there. And then to add to what you just said, I think Channel 21 also is another way to educate the public.
Absolutely.
And like we said, Facebook and all the other social media venues that we just addressed. So, thank you.
Councilmember Moore, did you have anything else?
Well, I'm starting to forget what I was going to say, but
Maybe that's a good thing.
You could write it down, piece of paper.
So actually, this is, first comment is there are people that want us to address the problem, and there's people that are saying that there's other things we should be doing. And when in fact, really, the city of Federal Way is doing a lot to address homelessness and these crises that we're discussing. And the panhandling is not the area that we're seeming to be addressing in terms of what we have, what we can do legally within that realm. And second of all, Lakewood did this, and certainly they implemented it correctly, and they yielded positive results, period. And if I'm not mistaken, is that correct?
No, whether they
yielded some
implemented a
positive
policy
results.
that was in compliance with their understanding of the law, not necessarily the exact response we want to have. I just want to be 100% accurate. But they did see a 70 or 80% reduction in panhandling as a result of this. But it was multiple things, and that's...
Correct, exactly. And that's, thank you for, I know what you're going to say, and I appreciate that. And that's, it yielded some positive results, and it was a number of things that took place that they implemented to get to that. And this is not the answer that's going to solve everything, We're going to have to do a lot more other things to get to the outcome that Lakewood has gotten that we want to see here in Federal Way. But it's Bill, my question really, and my last point is, if this was to be implemented, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is if someone's standing there with a sign, the first point of contact is for a police officer to come to that person and say, Bill, just so you know, we have this new effort, they educate that person, right? And then there's a second, third, and fourth point of contact, or maybe this is what Lakewood's doing.
No, we're getting way ahead. So
No,
that's
this is questions regarding
Right.
panhandling.
Right.
And my general understanding of how it could work and what other cities are doing.
It's the-
There's a 4-point contact, if
Right,
from what I'm.
right.
m-
Well, that's true. And again, there's multiple
That's still part of the
steps.
conversation.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, Bill, can you answer that question? I mean, if we were to do this, there's a number of point of contacts.
What they do, and
Yes.
I can't necessarily say we would do this, is they
Right.
would, because they have a different ordinance.
Right.
And a different threshold, they will say, by the way, this is the ordinance. And then when they see them, again, they'll tell them, you're violating the ordinance. And then they'll come back and say, I think it was, this is your warning, and then we're taking you away for violating the ordinance. But they have a different array of ordinances which are different from what
Sure.
we feel when you have you will learn tomorrow at the discussion are very different. And that's what tomorrow's for, is for you to understand how we are in compliance.
Yeah.
And how, once that's in compliance, what can and cannot be done. But that's about pedestrian interference, and Lakewoods was very much more about, they had a broader definition of pedestrian interference than where we can go, I believe. But I'm not an attorney, so.
I'd like to hear from Councilmember Tran, because
I have asked him, yeah.
I'm the one who most quiet on the council. First of all, I want to make sure that all of us do share the concern with the public in regarding to the panhandling problem in the city. However, some of us want to take a different option to address that problem. The thing that really concerned me so far, and I think city attorney, assistant city attorney can jump in, is that so far, in my opinion, everything that we done, everything that we talk about, gearing toward limiting people from exercise their First Amendment right. And that is a very slippery slope. If you go back and watch the statement from some of the council members from this dais, you can pick that up right away. And I'm just worried, for the sake of this city, that one day we have to defend our decision. I know we all want the best for the city, and I appreciate that. But we have to be careful how we state it, how we talk about it, because I can tell you, go back, watch what you said on record, on videos, and I'm just worried. So maybe we need to step back just a little bit to make sure that we are on the same page. We are within the legal framework so that we don't say things that come back and bite us at the end. That's all I can say for today.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Tran. I'd like to put a pin in this discussion. I just had a brief recap, but any other comments? Okay, I think we all agree that panhandling is an issue in our city, right?
Yes.
Okay. We all agree that signs alone are not the answer. They could be a part of the answer, but they're not the answer.
Yes.
I think we're all in agreement that this is a multifaceted issue that's going to require multiple avenues of approach to address. Are we in agreement on that?
Yep.
Okay. I think we're all in agreement that we want to do something, though. Okay. All right. Good. So I think we're all in agreement. We don't want to infringe on anybody's First Amendment rights, and any words that are spoken from the dais may have been spoken in a moment, but again, we're not going to violate anybody's First Amendment rights. We're all in agreement on that, right?
Since day zero.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. No, I know, but it's, Councilmember
Thank you.
Trans said
Yes.
something that there's a perception that's informed by his experience that we need to respect. So,
Yeah.
so I think basically what we're looking at is a complex issue that's been addressed in other cities that we are taking the steps toward addressing ourselves. This is not about signs. This is not about panhandling necessarily. This is about how we work together to come to solutions. And this is, I mean, we're making sausage here, okay? We're doing it together. And the community is seeing us work together. The community is engaged in this process, and that's a good thing. But again, we don't need to argue about, you know, this or that. Let's just put everything on the table, and that's really what this discussion is about. And then based on everything being on the table, come back with fully formulated or partially formulated solutions that lead to the next step. Again, we're making steps toward a solution, whatever that, or toward action, whatever that is. In the end, I can tell you right now, with 100% certainty, the community could end panhandling. They just stopped giving money to panhandlers. That's it. That's the solution. And what we're trying to do is provide education on other ways to exercise the compassion that they feel. So we're really not even talking about the panhandlers. We're talking about the people giving to panhandlers. And the fact that when we provide them with an understanding that there are other ways to address a direct desire on their part to support somebody else in their moment of need, that they can do that and feel good about it. And I think that really is what this conversation is about. So signs, Facebook, multimedia, you know, all the different things, those are all possible yeses and probably effective yeses on some level. But that's really, we're really just creating a pathway toward a federal way solution to the, or a federal way, I'll say solution to addressing this issue. So anyway, anything else? I think for the good of the order, hearing nothing, go ahead and. Our next meeting for Land Use Transportation will be April 6th, 2020, right here in council chambers, and it will be on video for those of you that can't attend. But again, appreciate the community involvement in this very much. Thank you.